Well, hello everyone. Glad you could join us. We're doing monthly Grove Counseling teachings or conversations, and that's what this is right now. And today I'm joined with my good friend Steve Hoffman. Hey, Steve.
There we go. Hey, how's it going?
Steve is a pastor in Ohio. You want to tell
Yep.
us the title or the name of your congregation?
Yes, I serve Covenant Community Church in Fairfield, Ohio. I am the senior pastor. I live here with my 3 daughters and my wife and our brand new puppy, Theo.
And that's near Cincinnati, right?
Yeah, we are right outside of Cincinnati. I can get downtown in about 20 minutes or so.
Nice. Well, awesome. Well, Steve and
Yeah.
I have been I was gonna say lifelong friends, but I guess I'm not quite that old yet.
Basically.
Yeah, we met in college when we were discovering ourselves and figuring out who we are as humans. So,
Yeah.
he's been one of my good friends that we've stayed in contact through the years and doing ministry. We've always had each other to connect with when we needed.
Yep.
And early on in this pandemic time, you and I were able to have a conversation for your church just about the things we were noticing, some of the mental health issues and struggles with the pandemic and the kind of the loneliness that brought on. And so today we're just going to have a conversation picking up on that. Just what are we noticing now and what are some things we can do, some practices, right, to just kind of infuse into our day when we're really feeling that sting of anxiety or loneliness or whatever it happens to be.
So Matt and I were talking about life and how people are doing and how we're doing, and I thought we'd just mention some things we've noticed, maybe in our own lives, maybe in our families, maybe in our churches or the people we work with. But Matt, I was wondering if you could talk about, what's one thing you've noticed that people are really struggling with right now? What's one way people are really struggling, and maybe what are a couple things that people can do to kind of process through those things or work through those things?
Yeah, I think when we first, you and I had a conversation early on in this pandemic, and it feels like a lot of those things are still a problem, but they've just, I guess, nuanced a little bit with how people are, like you said, like we're not stuck in our homes anymore. So there's a level where people have moved on to their old coping mechanisms, which perhaps weren't great, depending on what the issue was. But one of the things I've noticed, just anxiety and grief are the two things that are kind of always something that's on my heart for the world. And so people with just different anxieties and maybe even just feeling stuck overall in life direction, either they don't like where they're going or they feel like they don't have any control over where their life is going. So that anxiety sets in and maybe even leads to depression or for them, it's just it's just hard. It's hard. They have heaviness about them when you talk to them. You could see it in their eyes. You could see it behind sometimes even their smile. Maybe I can even see it behind their mask, if I'm that good. We'll see. But I think, when push comes to shove, like we are creatures of habit and routine. And so we were all like discombobulated early on in this thing. And now we're back into maybe a routine, but it's still not good and we don't like it. And it just feels heavy. And I think part of that is how much we do cram into our day and into our life and even our own hearts. We run from emotion and we just stuff full our day with busyness instead of processing. So as far as the habit piece goes, like one of the things I've been really thinking a lot about is just building time to breathe into my day. And it sounds funny, but I think we need to do a better job of being intentional, even with deep breaths. I feel a deep breath can make you feel so much better. I mean, it relaxes your shoulders, filling your lungs with air. Like it actually almost feels good to breathe deep because we are so used to breathing shallow. So, setting an alarm maybe 3-4 times a day or even start with one and take a 60-second pause where you're not allowed to carry all the heaviness with you. Benevolently detach yourself from all of the anxiety and the stress and the pain, and just be for a minute, like a literal minute. Just sit and be. And so the 3-second breath thing, right? If you breathe in, like say a small prayer in those 3 seconds, and then breathe out and say a small prayer in those 3 seconds, and just get into a habit of building, transition time into your day from one thing or another. Like I probably lived the exact opposite already today. I went from one meeting at my office to a phone call all the way home from my office, helping another person, to jumping on a call with you right now. So I'm kind of not practicing when I'm preaching, but I think if just even saying it out loud reminds me I need margin, I need transition.
Yeah.
And again, you don't get to beat yourself up with shame about not doing it. That's not going to help you out.
Yeah.
We are, I heard a podcast earlier. It's like our shame closets are full right now. Yes. We don't need more shame. And I totally agree with that. We need less shame. We need to start taking stuff out of that closet and putting it where it belongs. And so that's what I would say. That's one thing I've definitely noticed with people. It wasn't necessarily not like that before the pandemic. It just definitely cranked up.
Yeah, I think something like this pandemic, and times where, there's just so much added stress, just kind of reveals a lot about you and brings a lot of stuff that you've pushed down in your life. It's come to the surface. I think in my own self, I've realized how anxious I can be. And so when you have something like a global pandemic, when you have something like stay-at-home orders, when you have, all this controversy about, how to handle this, and everyone's got a different opinion, you start feeling, anxious. But I think that anxiety was in me before, and I think it's just kind of come to the surface because of something big like this. Would you say that's somewhat accurate?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think, I've noticed that with marriages. I've noticed that with just family units in general. They run from a lot of the dysfunction and avoided it, stuffed down, the really painful feelings and emotions. And it was just right there when they had all these stay-at-home orders. They couldn't avoid it anymore, and they had to deal with it. Yeah. In some cases, that led to a breaking point, unfortunately. And I mean, the facts are domestic violence was way up during the pandemic, and we can't sugarcoat that. And so obviously healthy ways to express that and deal with it, and that would help the whole world, really. But definitely the congregations that you and I both minister to, definitely giving them some tools. So, I mean, what have you noticed? There's some practices to help with that, what you just shared.
Yeah, I think it's a little similar to, and I have another one for another thing I deal with, but when you were talking about taking deep breaths and building in pauses and margins in your day, there's a practice that comes from Ignatian spirituality called the prayer of examine, where you just kind of pray through at the end of each day, you just kind of pray through your day. It forces you to process that day so it doesn't bleed into tomorrow. And I think that's on days where I've remembered to do that, or even something a little, less spiritual, like at our table every day as a family, we give, one highlight, one low light for the day.
Yeah.
It forces, it causes us to talk through our day, what was good, what was bad. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't, bleed into the next day. So I think along with taking pauses throughout your day and creating some space and some margin within your day can be, and then together with, making sure you process each day can be extremely helpful to just kind of dealing with all that anxiety that's building up.
Yeah.
Kind of very similar to what you're seeing. I think human beings like to feel like they're in control.
Yeah.
And I think that's, the first sin. Adam and Eve wanted to control the world like God.
Right.
And we've been trying to do that ever since. And so when you have, a disease that we didn't know anything about and we're still learning about, when you have, you know, police shootings and crime and riots and peaceful protests and all of that mixed together, when you've got, it's an election year, you've got people telling us things. We have, government officials telling us things, telling us to do things that are completely out of our routine and out of our norm. You're going to feel like you have no control. And when you feel like you have no control, your anxiety.
Right.
But I think a lot of times that also leads to depression because you're realizing just how small you are.
Right.
And how little control, how unimportant you are in the grand scheme of things. It can lead to anger and fighting back against authority, fighting back against people, taking out your anger on other people. I think there's just a level of intensity that's an increase over what it normally is because we have so much going on, and I think that's perpetuating a lot of the things we have going on. I think you see a lot of people turning to conspiracies and conspiracy theories. I think that's just a way of finding control in something that you can't control.
Yeah, no, very, very true.
I think just we've hit such a big stress point collectively that, we're seeing things that normally we could, kind of contain, just kind of blow up within our own selves and within society as a whole. And I think for me, it's really hard to find joy in all of that. I can sit down and watch a baseball game, and normally that's something that causes joy, but then all the empty seats remind me, oh yeah, there's still a global pandemic going on. It's hard to find joy. And so what I've been doing the last, for a little bit here, and I really kind of crystallized these thoughts the last couple of days. There's so much outside of my control. I can't control politics. I can't control the government. I can't control this disease that's going through. But that, when you get down to the nitty gritty of life and family and my relationship with God, those are still things that I can do and appreciate and be a part of and find joy in. And it's caused me to stop and really see what's going on in front of me and really find the joy in those little things in life. Like the other day, we were out for a walk with our new puppy. We were all together. And just, I stopped for a moment watching Gracie try to walk the dog. And that was just a moment of pure joy. And normally I would have smiled and moved on, but I forced myself to stay in that moment because I've come to realize that that's so much more fleeting than I'd like to admit, that feeling of joy. I don't know where that's going to come from next, given everything else that's going on. And so it's been really forced me to slow down and focus more deeply on what's right in front of me. The small things that are within my, purview with, that I have some say in how it goes. And that's translated to, my devotional time, normally I'm just, reading the Bible and reading and then going to God with a prayer list, and that's it. And what I've done the last couple weeks is a practice called Lectio Divina
Mm.
that forces you to slow down, read and reread, focusing on something different in the passage every time you reread it, and ultimately end up praying that scripture passage. And so I've been going through the Psalms, and instead of me bringing my laundry list of concerns to God and calling that a prayer time, it's me listening to God speak to me through the scriptures and responding to that and praying that. It's aligning more closely my will with His. And instead of just reading the Bible to read the Bible for information or for maybe a good thought for the day, it's forcing me to slow down, focus more deeply on a smaller passage of scripture, and focus more deeply on what my heart is telling me and what God is saying to me through that time. So I think for me, it's just narrowing our focus to what's right in front of us and finding joy there, and then trusting God with the rest of the stuff that's so far out of our control. And when you're going on Facebook and giving an angry political rant, or when you're yelling at your wife about something going on, it's something small, but it's really because you're angry at something else. It's showing me that we're not trusting God with all that stuff, that we're trying to find something to control in some way to control something bigger than we're capable of. And I think just slowing down and breathing and focusing on what's right in front of you and listening to God, those are some really helpful ways of dealing with everything we're dealing with right now.
Absolutely. And even though it's 115 degrees here, like I have to go outside. I have to get out of my four walls and go. And I love finding spots where I can just go and be. And I've been going on these runs lately, even in the heat. I know I'm crazy, but gotta get out. And every morning when I run, I pass the same guy with his dog. And there's something about this guy's dog that I just love. He's never on a leash. And I'm not trying to call him out here, but he doesn't need it. He just doesn't. He's this like golden doodle, like auburn colored. I don't know. It's not golden, but whatever.
Yeah.
He's a doodle of some sort. And he just goes and he sniffs a bush and then gets up and he goes and he sniffs a tree and then he sees you and he just runs alongside you to see where you're going. And then he goes, and he sniffs it. And it's just this like joy, like you said, and this freedom. And, his owner just seems to have that same joy about him. And I just love seeing that, and those little things to look forward to. And it's like you said, it's that little moment of joy that then breathes into me like, okay, this is going to be a good day. And it seems like whatever I happen to be listening to at the time, maybe it's a sermon or a podcast or a book, and it's like it kind of fits with just seeing that dog running, and so I don't know, like there's something to that, and just the little things, the simple things, like even the interactions with people that I took for granted before all this. Talking to the cashier at the grocery store, like I actually want to they always ask you about your day because they are told to, but I want to flip it on them and see how their day's going. And even just making eye contact. It's like I'm seeing people's eyes better now because their face is covered with a mask. So where else are they gonna look?
That's all you have.
Yeah, but it's like I think there's something beautiful about that eye contact where you can really see love, joy, peace, pain, whatever it is behind those eyes. And even for a moment, maybe you can give them that joy that you're seeking. And spread that to them. And just that little interaction you get, whether, and people seem less scared of each other now, like they were early on at the grocery store. Like, so that's good. Early on, everyone's like, don't touch me, don't touch me, don't touch me, don't come near me.
And I think to that point, I keep telling I used to say to my girls before I left for the office, have a good day.
Yeah.
And now I find myself saying, make it a good day.
Yeah. Give them ownership. Yeah.
Because it's not going to happen on its own.
Right.
It's about our attitude. It's about how we're going to respond to the day. You know, when I leave the house, in the back of my mind, I've got a million things I'm going to have to do. None of them I want to do necessarily. But it's all about my attitude, and I can make it a good day. And I'm realizing that good days aren't just going to happen. I think I have to be more intentional about finding the good and making good things happen in my day. And that gets to serving others and giving to them what you're looking for. But I think, you just finding those small moments, like we've been saying, and whether it's to focus on appreciating something that you normally wouldn't stop to focus on, or if it's just focusing on your own breathing, just find those moments and lean into them. And I think we're finding ourselves, we have to be so much more intentional about taking care of ourselves, because we're limited in what we can do, and because there's so much more we have going on.
Yeah, and I would argue we're just becoming more aware of how intentional we need to be.
Yes.
Take care of ourselves. Like, we always needed that, but we never realized. We realized how bad of a job we really were doing during all this.
Yeah. Well, Matt, it's been good talking to you.
Yeah, always, can I leave you with one parting thing here?
What's that?
Can I leave you with one parting thing?
Absolutely.
I pulled this out of my backpack while you were talking about liturgy, and it's a common prayer. I think there's been several versions of this through the years, but this particular one, I just opened up to the date we're recording this on, August 30th, and I just want to read this prayer to kind of maybe cast this out, and I think it really fits well with what we just said. God's good like that. But it says this. It says, "May the peace of the Lord Christ go with you, wherever He may send you. May He guide you through the wilderness, protect you through the storm. May He bring you home rejoicing at the wonders He has shown you. May He bring you home rejoicing once again into our doors." So I thought that was fitting, kind of those, wherever the road takes us today, even if it's little things, if it's a little simple moment of joy with your kids on the sidewalk, or a little moment with a random dog that's running by, it's like, may God be with us in those and bring us that joy where we need it the most.
All right. Good talking to you.
Yeah, man. Thanks for catching up.
All right.